Okay, so wicking beds. I don't know whether you've heard of them, but this is the basic principle. You have something that you're growing whatever in. This plant has since died because it's an annual. And then you have some way of wicking water up from a reservoir down below. What it means is that you don't have to water it nearly as often because you've got a reservoir of water and the water just comes up by wicking action into the garden bed. And it's good if you've got this sort of reservoir, it's good to have some way of checking the water level in it. It's also good to have some way of being able to let the water out if it gets too high, and having some way of having it overflow all by itself if you get heavy rain and it wants to fill the whole thing up. So the bottom of the soil is at that mark there, and if it gets so much rain it fills up, it just overflows from there, so the water never gets to fully saturate the soil. Now that's the basic principle. I've done a bit of experimenting with that and I found that it doesn't work as well as what you would think. I had tomatoes growing in these, and what happened was that initially the tomatoes grew really well, and then the roots grew down through the wick and into the water reservoir at the bottom, and then when that happened the tomatoes didn't look so good. And I think that's because the roots were no longer in soil, they were just in water, so they weren't getting the nutrients that they would have got if they had been sitting in soil with the bacteria helping them extract the nutrients. So there's a lot of different designs you'll find on the web for wicking beds and stuff. The most common one, they put sand or gravel in the bottom, and then they put something over the top of that, and then they put the dirt over the top of that. And they basically work in the same way as this, and they're going to have the same problems. That the guy, I've met the guy that actually invented this system, Colin Austin, and he's since moved on, and he says the best way to do it is just to have dirt all the way from the ground, bottom up. So you actually have the water level going up and down, and if you try and keep that water level constant, it goes sour and really smelly because it becomes anaerobic. And the way to fix that is you allow the water level to naturally fluctuate. You allow it to get empty before you fill it. You don't try and keep it at a constant level. So the water goes all the way down, you fill it, the water comes back up again, and then it goes up and down, and that stops it going sour. So that's whether you use a reservoir at the bottom, or whether you put dirt on the bottom, or gravel on the bottom, or mulch on the bottom. So I've experimented with this in a number of ways. This garden bed here was an attempt to do the whole thing more naturally. So it's built on a bed of clay, so I figured that was impermeable. So I scraped some of the clay back and built a little wall, like a dam, about that high, around the outside. Then I put a log on top of that, and a log in front of it to support the dam. And then there's, in the bottom of it, I put a lot of branches and just general green waste, mulch I got from the dump. You know how people we're back on the wicking bed. Now this one, so it had about that much of organic material on the bottom, and then I put about that much of dirt and compost and stuff on top, with the idea that the organic matter on the bottom provides the reservoir sealed in by the dam. There's a point up the other end that's at about this height here, so that it can overflow and not fill up the whole thing. And then at this end we have a way of filling it. This is just Aggie pipe. I never quite finished this because I turned in that there was a problem with this thing, that the dam actually leaked and there was no point filling it up using this. This is Aggie pipe that runs under the whole thing so that I could put lots of amount of water to fill up the reservoir directly. But when I realised that my little dam for the reservoir leaked, I decided that I would just water it from the top instead of watering it from the bottom, so I didn't worry about that anymore. But what I've also got here is the good thing you can do with wicking beds is you can use your terrain to funnel water into them. You can see I've got this little bank here, and what I've done is I've put a bit of a channel across it. So any water that falls on this bank will run into that channel and it'll run into this wicking bed. So it's adding water. I've also got some plastic up above it so that rain will get funneled into the bed. This one at the moment, all it's got in it is some basil and got basil there, and a melon, and the pawpaws. The pawpaws actually came up in the compost. I don't do hot composting, so seeds can come through it, so I often get vegetables coming up in the compost. And so with these, the pawpaws came up and I decided that it would be a shame to waste them, so I built the greenhouse around the pawpaws that came up in the wicking bed, and they've been doing quite well. And the sides and roof are just pulled off the greenhouse at the moment for summer. They'll get put on again in winter.